You know, they aren't going to ban any kind of weapon. And what they are trying to ban, trans athletes. The Ohio House passes a bill banning trans athletes, and we'll see if this little local news hit mentions the worst of it. We're gonna get into the actual aspects of the bill here in just a second.
A bill passed through the state house would ban transgender females from participating in female sports in any school or athletic conference. The bill was first introduced last year but died in the state Senate. It is now part of a different piece of legislation, and it's causing some controversy. Kaylee Marentet sat down with members of an LGBTQ organization to get their input on it.
Minutes before midnight, before June 1st, they introduced an amendment to completely ban trans athletes in female sports. What a way to wake up to pride.
The Ohio State House of Representatives gave the green light to Bill 151 last week, an education bill with an amendment with new bans to athletics.
The Save Women's Sports Act will require schools that are part of the OHSAA to designate separate teams for participants of the biological female sex.
It would also permit schools, universities, and athletic organizations from allowing transgender females from participating in female sports. Republican Representative Jenna Powell introduced the act last week.
The reason we have women's sports divisions is because biological males will always have a physiological and biological advantage over girls.
In the bill, it would also require a physician's note and possible testosterone testing if someone's gender is being questioned.
This bill empowers.
And it's trying to take the power away from the NCAA to regulate their own fucking leagues as well. That's insane to me.
People to question other people's gender. There are so many families that have non-binary people in them, and trans families, and really we're not thinking about our whole community.
The bill now heads to the Senate. Governor Mike DeWine has questioned the need for a ban, arguing that these situations are typically handled within leagues and athletic associations. The Ohio High School Athletic Association claims it's not.
Well, no, the NCAA answers the question wrong for them.
Is small. Right now, the NCAA requires trans women athletes to take testosterone suppression therapy 1 year before competing. Reporting in downtown Toledo, Kaylee Marentet, WTOL 11.
Boston heads back home to try.
No, not Boston. We don't give a shit about Boston. I forgot what I was looking for. The Ohio bill banning transgender girls from female sports could require genital checks. That's what's insane about all of this. These people who are trying to protect children are the ones trying to fucking inspect their genitals. As soon as House Republicans passed a bill to block transgender girls from playing on female sports teams in K through 12 or college, opponents started questioning how physicians would verify a minor's biology. They claim girls of all ages could be required to undergo full pelvic exams if an opposing team's coach, player, or parent questioned their sex. House Bill 151, also called the Save Women's Sports Act, says if a participant's sex is disputed, she must verify her sex with a physician in only the following ways: an exam of her internal and external reproductive anatomy, her normal endogenously produced levels of testosterone, and analysis of her genetic makeup. This is fucking sick. Not clear whether student athletes could pick one of these options or would have to provide all three. All three. Representative Jenna Powell added the language to House Bill 151 last week, but she didn't respond to a request for comment. Neither did Representative Gene Schmidt, who sponsored similar legislation and spoke in support of Powell's amendment. Options 2 and 3 would require a blood draw, but option 1 is a full pelvic exam that could include ultrasound and or insertion of a doctor's hand to confirm the presence of a uterus and ovaries. According to Melissa Wervey Arnold, the CEO for Ohio's chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. People need to understand that this is not standard practice. Adult males and females do have their genitals examined, but that's not standard practice in pediatric care. Oh. So I had a person in my YouTube comments on the stupid ass Matt Walsh video tell me that I did not know what the definition of the word bigot was, and even cited the definition. I want to show you guys this comment because I was on it was the Matt Walsh video I did. Apparently they're saying I don't know the definition of the word bigot. Going by your last two replies, I would say you lack self-awareness or have no idea what a bigot is. Bigot, a person who is ostensibly or unreasonably attached to a belief, opinion, or faction, especially one who is prejudiced against or antagonistic towards a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular group. Now tell me, there is one publicly known trans athlete in Ohio. If passing a law where you can examine any child's fucking genitals isn't an unreasonable fucking step to take to discriminate against one fucking child that we know of, I don't know what fucking is. You're a bigot. You're a fucking bigot. The people that pass these laws are bigots. That is the very definition of bigotry as you stated it. Just some guy. And holy shit, are they ever upset over this drag show? And supposed people on the left are sharing this out and saying, oh, that's not okay. You might have seen the picture of the back of the wall as well shared on the Twitter. It says it's not gonna lick itself. This is an ice cream shop where this happened. It's an ice cream shop. It said it's not going to lick itself. Is it a sexual innuendo? Absolutely. Is it funny? Yes. Is it an A+ joke for an ice cream shop to make? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Oh! Yeah! Come on back, let's go!
There is absolutely nothing wrong with what I see here.
Straight the pose.
I don't care. The right wing is going nuts over this shit.
Come on back! Alright, everybody, good job!
Okay, apparently it's also a bar as well, but that's cool.
Strike the pose. Strike the pose! Yeah, baby, come on back!
Oh, I hate that you just encountered Matt Walsh. I'm getting ready to make you encounter Matt Walsh again. I see nothing wrong with that. I see something incredibly wrong with the gun culture in this country. I see kids holding guns as being really weird, and I'm not against guns. But I don't know what everyone is up in arms about, like including people like Shoe on Head, who is supposedly nominally on the left, Who, by the way, people pointed out to Shoe on Head that, people take kids to Hooters, which I also don't really have a problem with. And she said, well, I'm against that. And, like, that's not okay as well. And to which I replied, which she never replied back to, like, well, or she made the comment that, like, people aren't talking about it because it's not a topic. And I'm like, well, people aren't talking about it because influencers aren't talking about it because you're just chasing clicks, and you admitted that. I've got nothing against the drag brunch or the kids being there. Those kids looked like they were having a really good time and that they were going and dancing, having a blast. There's nothing inherently sexual about what was going on there. That's the thing, is right-wingers automatically think of gayness or any kind of cross-dressing or gender nonconformity as being something of, like, sexual deviance, and there's nothing inherently sexual about what is going on right there. Because the existence of queer people is sexual to them, and it's not inherently sexual in any way. Content warning. We're going to watch a clip from What is a Woman? And I found this through watching the Surfs. And Lance reacted to this, and I couldn't believe how bad Matt Walsh looked in this. And that's why I don't like watching other people's content, because I'm like, ooh, I want to talk about that too. And I don't want to steal off of anybody. Like, this was too good not to watch it. He's talking to a gender study professor or some shit. And just wait till you see what happens.
Gender studies is not just reduce gender to what psychologists might call individual differences, but rather thinking about gender. And that's not women and man, but gender as a social form, something that kind of infuses itself into virtually
not high enough for this shit.
Social life.
Let's talk about that then. I guess we should start with, we've got gender and sex, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two? Is there a difference?
I saw that in your questions, and I thought, my goodness, this is what we spend an entire semester kind of thinking through. But what we tend to think about in the social sciences today is that sex refers to a set of biological characteristics, and gender is a social construct or category. What I think is often misleading about that characterization is allowed to be sort of messy and complicated. But in that...
So he asks him the question, the professor explains it in depth to him, and he cuts it up to where you don't actually hear the professor's answer to his question. Multiple cuts.
You split them up into these wholly discrete constructs. Studies scholars, and really more specifically people who study gender and sex. We're not talking about sexuality right now. In the kind of academic universe that I travel in is that we see how deeply gendered ideas, cultural ideas about masculinity and femininity.
Perhaps you're a right-winger watching this. I would like to point out to you that this is the height of intellectual dishonesty here. That you've inserted music to drive home a certain point. You have edited him to where you can't understand what he's answering. Matt Walsh is a dishonest motherfucker. And if you don't take it at face value for me saying that, remember, Matt Walsh said I was a formidable voice in the culture.
Justin FREAKIN, the formidable voice in the culture.
So if you get your information from Matt Walsh has actually endorsed me and said that I am a formidable voice in the culture. So listen to me when I tell you that Matt Walsh is a fucking idiot. And you shouldn't listen to anything that he has to say. And he is incredibly dishonest, as you see here.
Maleness and femaleness, both in humans and in lots of other animals.
So are gender and sex two different things, or?
Well, I think that they both are and they aren't. I'm comfortable saying that gender and sex are two different constructs, but they're deeply intertwined with each other.
We're talking about gender and sex, and there's a lot of controversies there. If we're talking about a trans woman has all of the male physical characteristics, so would that not be a male then? Couldn't we plainly say this person is a male?
Well, I guess it's like, why are you asking the question? I think I want to understand sort of why that's so important. So if someone tells
Just
you...
to sort of understand reality, you know?
Well, I mean, I think when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. So if a person says that they're a woman or they're a man, then that's them telling you their gender is. I'm not so sure what social interactions would have to do with maleness or femaleness that would.
Well, I'm not even talking about social context. I'm just trying to start by getting to the truth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really uncomfortable with that language of like getting to the truth again. In social life.
Why is that uncomfortable?
Because it sounds actually deeply transphobic to me. And if you keep probing, we're going to stop the interview.
If I probe about what the truth is?
You keep invoking the word truth, which is condescending and rude. I'm saying to you...
How is the word truth condescending and rude?
Why don't you tell me what your truth is, and you're walking on 30 seconds more of thin ice before I get up.
I really like the professor.
Well, I don't think I really have a truth. I think that there's just the truth, like the reality. And so we should begin by trying to figure out what the reality is.
Uh-huh. And why are you concerned with when someone else tells you that they're a man, or even if they use the word male, why are you...
Wanting to see the rest of the interview is totally understandable, since what Matt Walsh actually selected as what he thought made him look the best actually makes him look really fucking dumb. And the editing shows how deceptive and dishonest he is.
You concerned with not believing them?
Well, you keep bringing it back to, you know, how do you respond in a social situation? But,
that's what I do. I'm a social scientist.
Well, right, but we're in a university. This is a place of understanding.
You asked a social scientist.
We pursue truth, and I'm a social scientist, and that's what I do.
But you just said the truth is transphobic.
That you would say, if you're saying the truth is that I get to say, you're not a man, show me your genitalia, that's transphobic.
No, I don't want to see him as
yes.
genitalia. I just mean... Someone can make.
I think you do, you weird fuck.
Be untrue. Like, for example, if I were to say that I'm a black man,
I think it's gonna come out that you duggered somebody. And I think it's wild that he brings up, you know, race, which is also like not a real thing, and that, like, you know, it exists on a scale as well. You know, fucking compares well to gender. To be honest with you.
would you accept that, or would you be skeptical?
Are you?
Matt does have nice hair. I'll give him that. That's the only compliment. And somebody said that they agreed with Matt on only one thing, and I will agree with Matt on only one thing, and that's that he is a Christian fascist.
I don't think so.
Well, you don't look that, and I don't think it doesn't sound like that's a genuine statement of who you are.
Okay, so that's my point. I could make a statement.
Cassie, welcome. Good evening.
Of course, I think it's well established that human beings can lie, yes.
Or not even lie. I mean, I could just be mistaken.
Yeah.
I guess this all comes back.
He pulled a producer Dave. He just blew him off. Yep. Okay.
Especially women, gender, and sexuality studies. So what is a woman?
Why do you ask that question?
I just really like to know.
What do you think the answer to that question is?
Well, I'm asking. That's why I came to a college professor who's this is what you do.
A woman is a human on the feminine side of the spectrum.
A lot of like
traits.
this, where you're not answering, and I've gotten a lot of that.
Easy.
I think it's interesting that you say that some of the people you've interviewed have been reluctant to answer it, and I think that has a lot to do with the questions that preceded it, and the way that you've conducted yourself in the interview.
How have I conducted myself?
How do you think you've conducted yourself?
You just really don't want to answer the questions, do you?
I will tell you exactly how. No, not a monkey video. You get a seal. You get a harbor seal. The harbor seal wants to give you a smile. I will tell you exactly how Matt Walsh conducted himself in this interview. He asked fallacious questions, loaded questions, leading questions. He deceptively edited the professor to where you didn't actually hear his answer, which was probably incredibly well thought out and smarter than anything fucking Matt Walsh has ever said. And this was actually in the movie, What is a Woman? And it does not make Matt Walsh look good.
I came today very willing and enthusiastic about answering questions about women's and gender sexuality studies, which is
So
the work that I do.
You wanted to answer questions about women's studies, and so shouldn't the first answer you should be able to provide is what exactly is a woman?
Well, for me, it's actually a really simple answer, and that's a person who identifies as a woman.
But what are they identifying as?
As a woman.
But what is that?
Someone with feminine traits.
Do you know what a circular definition is?
I do.
It's sort of like what you're doing right now, where a woman is a woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're seeking what we would call in my field of work an essential.
when they're just totally silly billies.
I think it sounds like you would like me to give you a set of biological or cultural characteristics that are associated with one.
He's too good to ever pull a twisted T on Matt Walsh.
I'm just seeking a definition.
Yeah, and I gave you one.
He's mansplaining to a professor. I'm sure you gave him a great definition, but we're never going to get to hear it because Matt Walsh edited it out of his little fucking movie. The one that he spent so many fucking thousands of dollars promoting just so we can't even fucking see what it was that you said to him.